with walls of men and steel, and tongues sharper than the legionnaire spears. These proud people have ruled over vast empires of men and myrrh for centuries, bringing order and stability wherever they may conquer. Rather than move as an army of individual warriors, coordinated lines of well-trained infantry strike as one great force of Imperial might. Though they may be conquerors, they are not cruel, seeking to spread Imperial peace, progress, and prosperity throughout the many vassal states left in thy wake. War is not their only method, however, as centuries of political games have left them quite adept at diplomatic deceptions. A dragon break having scattered them upon the winds of time and tossed into the astral sea, the Imperials find themselves lost and without an emperor to guide them. Great Akatosh, god of time and father of dragons himself, has come to guide his children towards a new era of glory and conquest. For Akatosh! For the Empire! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Kurojaku, and today we're going to be going over my Imperial Legion Age of Wonders 4 build with our boy Akatosh as the ruler in place of an emperor, because I thought it'd be more fun, but we'll talk about that in a bit. If you like what you see, like, subscribe, do all that normal stuff. Let me know what you think, or if you have any other builds in mind that you would like to see. And before we get into it, I do want to make clear, this is not going to be the most meta build you've ever seen. Most of these builds are made to be fun, to have an interesting playstyle, and not every decision I make is going to be 100% optimized. So you can take it at face value, copy it over into your game if you wish, or tweak it and change it if this inspired you to run a more optimized version of the build. And who knows, maybe some days I will actually land on a accidentally meta setup. All that out of the way, let's get into it. First things first, as usual, racial traits. Now, what are Imperials known for in Elder Scrolls? Really two things, usually toughness, some sort of like tanky vibe to them a bit, but also diplomacy. And I've got some clever ways to wrap both of those in. Now the race is mostly going to be toughness, but first, we do have a little bit of diplomacy here with the cheerful trait. Gives us increased morale gain. Now, this is mostly a flavor trait, but it does actually have gameplay value later down the line. In the later tomes, order tomes do center heavily around morale boosting. As for the more defensive side of things, we're going to start with Bulwark. It's going to give our defense mode +2 defense and +2 resistance on top of what defense mode already gives you. This is going to synergize extremely well with the culture and the main units we're using. We'll get into that in just a second when I get to talking about the culture. And combined with that, doubling down on the defensive aspect of things, we're running defensive tactics. My idea going into this build was, it is an Imperial Legion. They're very similar to the Roman legions of, the real world. They're very heavily themed off of a similar style, so that was kind of the Greco-Roman theme with the lines of shield walls. This is going to give us even more defense and resistance, as well as a little bit of evasion from ranged attacks, as long as you are standing in a buddy system, at minimum. Any racial unit stands next to each other. This will include our dragon, by the way, because he will also have defensive tactics. He won't get race transformations, but he will get to start with these. As for the culture, now a big thing that made me want to kind of put this build together was the Archon update and the architects that came with it. We're going to be running Order architects, as you can see. Now, this video is being finished before Thrones of Blood comes out. However, we do have the patch notes for Thrones of Blood, the next DLC, and they did do some changes to architects. I will touch on those as they come up. The build as a whole should still work mostly the same, with a little less potency at the late game because there's a cap to the architect mechanic. That mechanic being Affinity Incarnate, which you can see here, gives us additional damage. The rework to Affinity Incarnate does two things. One, we will start at +1. We can only get +4 from building our monuments, which you can see on the tooltip here. You build monuments with a special material, The monument gives you 1 affinity per tier, up to 4 for a full monument, but that's the maximum we can get even if we build more monuments in terms of damage output. So we're capped at 5, and then we can boost it again with our tier 1 cultivators, but let's be honest, we're not going to be doing that. Speaking of units, your tier 1 unit, the cultivators, they're nothing special. They don't really heal particularly well as a tier 1 support. Their main purpose is to give affinity incarnate to all your other cultural units. All of your other units as well, not only do they get the damage bonus from affinity incarnate, but they also tend to have a second bonus trait that scales off it as well. However, once you get past late game, you're really not going to need these. And with the change to you starting with affinity incarnate right at the start, these might get even less valuable to you. Our other tier 1 unit, however, is Earthbreakers, and this is where the first idea to include Bulwark came to me. So, for their incarnate, they get additional hit points per stack. So if you've got the maximum of 5, that means these guys are going to get plus 25 health, bringing up to 95 at recruit level, and that can obviously get higher. So they do get decent health, and we are going to stack them pretty heavily with a lot of defense as well. However, these guys can actually be pretty good cheap meat shields due to the fact that their charge attack is a cleave and always enters into defense mode. So it will break enemies' defense mode, it will put you into defense mode, meaning you will always have Bulwark up for that +2. So you might as well consider this, right? +2 defense, +2 resistance, so you can be at 4 and 2. You add Bulwark, you're at 6 and 4. You add in standing adjacent to a friend, you're at 7 and 5, which is honestly pretty solid for free defense that you just get before any enchantments or anything like that. And by the time you have that 5 incarnate, you will have enchantments. Real quick, Shade Makers, the bowmen, we're not using them. We're not using them at all. We don't really care about them. They're being completely skipped in this build. We are fully focused on casters and melee units, so I'm not going to really talk about them much. Guardians, however, these might be my new favorite shield units in the game. Even though they're only tier 2, I don't care. I love these units. We get the Affinity Incarnate. We get First Strike on a shield unit, which is quite nice. That's usually reserved for pikemen. We get it on a shield unit, so we get all the benefits of Shield Wall, giving 3 defense to another ally, including yourself. So their defense mode might as well be 5 defense already, not including Bulwark and everything else we have going for us, but we also get First Strike on top of that. We also get Incarnate Retaliation, where adjacent attackers take 1 damage of the associated type per stack of Affinity Incarnate. So anyone who hits you in melee is going to take First Strike damage, and then potentially up to 5 Spirit damage when they hit you. You also, obviously, like all shield units, get increased defense against non-flanking attacks, and that will come in handy later. And Incarnate Disruption. Adjacent enemy units suffer -1 damage type resistance associated with each stack of Affinity Incarnate. 1 pikeman will give you -5 spirit resistance just by standing next to him, and this does stack with multiple. I didn't see anything in the patch notes saying otherwise. So if you have 2 guardians, which is how I like to run it, at least 2 of them in a stack, you can reduce someone's spirit resistance by -10. And then the architects, who are going to be our core backline units, they have the strongest burst heal in the game. They get to summon a Tesseract, which currently the Tesseracts count as a siege unit, like a tower, as you can see. After the patch, they're actually going to count as a battle mage, which means any battle mage enchantments will apply to Tesseracts. Very, very fun unit. And they do decent damage. I really do like using supports as my main backline because you can just move them and then do full damage every turn. They are optional cavalry, but we're not talking about that today. These architects and guardians are going to be our main bulk of our armies in the late game, along with some tome units as well. On to society traits. Obviously, we are playing Imperials. We have to take the Imperialist trait. It's nice. You obviously want to build around your throne city with this just to get a little bonus. It's not the strongest thing in the world, but it is helpful. And then the one that I'm actually quite proud of, all the way down in Shadow, Silver-Tongued. This is where I thought I got a little clever, and I'm very proud of how this build came out. This is where we get the Imperial diplomacy mixed in. Pronouncements cost less. That's great. That's when you deal with like AI rulers. It is what it is. The important things I really like about this. Trade with free cities are for free. Assuming they don't hate you, minus 100% means you can get the mana, the draft, the whatever for them for free. So you just get free resources from every free city that you are on good terms with. Not even vassalized, just on decent terms with. On top of that, you start with Court of Whispers. So you get a second Whispering Stone as a start, and you can swipe people's vassals out from under them because you can give Whispering Stones to vassals of other empires. And we'll talk about the scout in a minute. This is very important. A very core thing to architects is getting Wonderstone. How do you get Wonderstone? You get it from magic materials in two ways. One, surveying the magic material with a scout, which by getting an extra scout unit, we get to start with 2 of them to go run around the map and try to get as much Wonderstone as possible. On top of that, controlling a magic material, meaning it is under allied control and does not have an enemy stack on it, like a monster stack, gives you Wonderstone every turn, so like a small trickle. This includes all of your vassal states. So what you can do is 1, try to get a lot of free cities on your side, but 2, you can also run around with like a scout and a hero together, find magic materials, drop outposts on them, turn them into cities, and then release those cities as vassals. You basically get a free outpost that fends for itself. It will produce its own units. It still gives you the magic material for the Wonderstone. You get free resources from that free city because the trades are minus 100% cost. And when Rally of the Lieges comes along, which is a mechanic that I don't really like using that often, I get to recruit full stacks of Guardians, of Shade Makers, I mean, we're not using those, potentially Architects, even the tier 1 Hammer Boys, all of them are great, and we can just recruit them en masse every time Rally of the Lieges pops up if we've got 2, 3, 4 Imperial City vassals. Skipping over the tomes as usual, we talk about that at the end because it's a bit of a conversation. We're going with the Dragon Lord. You want to do a human champion emperor? By all means, bring Tiber Septim back. I went with Dragon Lord just because giant golden holy order dragon seemed like a lot of fun. This is him with his race transformation, the order transformation at level 8. And you can see on the screen all of the settings for him if you want to copy him. And then when you give him the order transformation, he'll get these big, awesome, feathery wings. Now note, I did make him a Materium Dragon, not an Order Dragon. I believe I did that because I needed the Materium affinity in order to have enough Materium by tier 3 to make Materium monuments, because you need at least 3 affinity to make a monument. This is honestly going to be less important with the rework. Currently, you get affinity incarnate for each monument, right? So if you build 1 full order monument, you'd get 4 order, and if you built 1 full Materium monument, you'd get 4 physical damage, right? 4 Materium affinity. And you could get both. Technically, you could build a rainbow, right? You could build 3 different monuments and have 3 different damage types. With Thrones of Blood, they are changing it, so now it just matters what your highest affinity is. Ours is always going to be order, so the damage reflection on Guardians, the resistance down on Guardians, all of that is only going to be spirit damage. Even if I built a Materium monument, I'm never going to lap my order affinity. So the Materium Dragon, honestly, you could, if you wanted to, swap this out for an Order Dragon. I might even do that, I haven't totally decided yet. For now, I'm going to leave him as is. And here's all your race settings, should you wish to use them. Keep in mind the 2 metal colors for Architects. I think I nailed it. I think these look perfect for Imperials. I liked how the tier 1 looks like a gladiator from the arena, and then this looks like more, the Guardians look more like trained soldiers. These look like prophets. It's perfect. And as usual, the intro is right here for you if you wish to copy it over as well. Again, day, however many, of asking Triumph to add some sort of faction sharing or download or import system. That'd be so nice. Until then, we have to do it the long form where we have to just look at the video and then copy it over. As for advanced settings, we'll talk about homes in a second. City names, obviously, we just rip them straight from Oblivion and stuff them in here. I feel like I'm missing one. Aren't I? I'm definitely missing one. Hold on. Bravil, Coral, Leowin. There we go. There we go. I wish I had a shuffle button. There we go. I guess these ones just aren't going to be seen that often, will they? You can order this list however you see fit. You know, put your favorite cities at the top. I don't know. Which I guess my favorite city would probably be Skingrad. Though if you are making a lot of vassals, you will get to see all these city names pop up. And then you're going to release them as a vassal and they'll keep the name. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of nice, right? As for heroes, my idea was to make them shock cavalry to complement all of my infantry. We also have tier 4 cavalry from the tomes, so these act as like a better version as well as an earlier version. The other thing, and I'm probably going to have to add these in myself, is adding in some ritualists. Actually, we're pretty close to it. That looks good. I'm a fan of that. It's not a shaman, he's a priest. There we go. Oh, but that's kind of the idea. I'm going to sneak in a couple of either ritualists or battle saints. Kind of up to you which way you want to go. I'm going to make him a battle saint, actually. And move up. And what I like to do is alternate my heroes. That way, when you play the game, you get a good choice. So if you want to just take the cavalry, it's pretty easy to do that. If you want a nice blend, also the AI will take a nice blend of units as well. That's just how I like to set it up. Now let's talk tomes. First tome, Tome of Faith. Main thing we're looking for here is Staves of Mending. This is going to give our tier 1 supports who really aren't very good at healing an actual heal spell. And the best part is it's a free cast heal spell, so they can heal and then also still do their little tether that gives the Affinity Incarnate. There's also a nice buff to the Architects who have that really strong burst heal, which has a decent cooldown, but I think they lowered it with the new patch. I think it goes lower. But now you get the option to... I really like Mending Touch. You can single target burst heal someone like crazy. You can touch heal one guy, heal another for a big burst, and spread it out. You can use one heal at the start and hold the other in your pocket, waiting for damage to happen. It makes it a lot more useful. Also, getting Faithful on your main tier 3 unit is never a bad thing. The rest of the stuff isn't that useful. We already get Summon Lesser Light Spirits in combat, and we don't really care about summoning them in the world map, so, it's whatever. Faithful Whispers is very nice, however. This works with our Vassal playstyle, so this is a very good synergy. Wrath of the Faithful does scale okay, especially when you have a lot of those Architects or Cultivators out, but otherwise, the main thing we're here for is Staves of Mending and a decent little structure. Tome of Discipline is the next tier 1 tome, which gives us a little materium as well. A lot of people meme on this one, say it's a bit underpowered. I'm actually a really big fan of this. Ignore the Monk. We're never building monks. Mantra Purification, honestly, kind of a weak spell. Wish they would buff it back to being a full cleanse like it used to be. Its current state, especially with... we're going to have even more debuff spam in the next patch with all the bleeds going around. This isn't strong enough, but we're going to ignore that. Focus Aim. It doesn't always work, but when it does, when you move that Architect within a 5% range of killing an enemy hero, you pop this, you get a guaranteed hit. It doesn't boost your damage, but every once in a while, this will shine and swing a fight. Empowered Strikes for all your melee units. You get +1 physical damage, which is kind of weak compared to other weapon enchants, I will admit. And you get a chance to stun on your 3rd hit. This is mostly to buff all our Guardians, right? You get right up on somebody. If you start the turn right up on somebody and you don't need to move, you get to poke them down and maybe hold them in place where they're going to stay in range of the resistance debuff, right? I do kind of wish they would buff this to at least still buff the +1 damage on our Earthbreakers. It doesn't. It doesn't even affect shock units. I wish they would buff it, because you wouldn't get the chance of stun, and it's already weaker than all other melee weapon enchants. You know what I mean? But I digress. It is what it is. The real reason I wanted this tome, I mean, this is nice, and Empowered Strikes is fine. The main thing I want is Inner Mastery. That +1 status resistance, and 20% healing received. We are already tank stacking. We have Bulwark on top of defensive formations, on top of really good shield units, and more to come down the line. And we're playing heavily around shield units who give shield wall, and support units who give warding, so that +3 resistance to adjacent allies in defense mode. You make things really hard to kill, more defense makes those HP points stretch further, more healing received works very well with more defense to make it very hard to remove your units. And Decaying got nerfed in the Archon update, so Decaying no longer completely shuts off all healing, instead it stacks 25% at a time, so if you have 4 Decaying then you're screwed. But if you only have 1 Decaying, you can still heal through it. Next is Tome of the Construct, which sounds weird. But this tome lies to you. It is not Tome of the Construct, it is Tome of the Legion, because the whole thing is themed around tight formations. They should rename this tome, I'm gonna be totally honest with you. The building is nice, but we're here. We're skipping the golem, we don't care about the golem, but we do want everything else. We'll first talk about the simple one. An enchantment for all of our polearm units, shield, polearm, and fighter units. We only have shield units, that's all we care about. They get even more defense and resistance if they're adjacent to a unit. So effectively, all our guardians, because they already have defensive formations, are going to have +2 defense and +2 resistance just by standing next to each other. How good is that? More defense stacking. Then, here's where the real fun begins. We have Linked Minds, a race transformation that is going to give all of our units hyper awareness, as long as they're standing next to each other. I think you're starting to see the pattern here. This makes them immune to flanking. We are buffing all of our defensive stats across the board, and now all our units are immune to being flanked. Even better, shield units get an extra 3 armor against non-flanking attacks, of which all attacks are now non-flanking. This is a very, very strong thing on its own with tankier builds, but on top of that, we get access to 2 fun spells. These effectively work the same way. You put it on somebody, and anyone touching them will cascade this infinitely across the line as long as everyone has Linked Minds. The reposition one gives us 1 hastened and 1 strengthened for more damage and allowing us to move quicker. However, Cascading Defend will cleanse 2 status effects, and more importantly, give defensive masters. So you can move all your pikemen in, you can do your damage, and still end in defense mode to get your bulwark and to get your shield wall. You move your supports right behind them, they can give the warding even better. This is where we start to get the Legion theme where everyone moves in tight formations. This is when it starts to turn on. Next is the new tome added with Archon, one of them. Tome of Virtue. We're skipping on the Vigils. Paladins are okay. I would not replace your Guardians with Paladins, however. Early game I like to use 2 Guardians and then like a Hammer guy, because he can end things in defense mode at all times. You could drop that Hammer guy for a tier 3 Paladin. They do have a heal, however it ends their turn. And they do have Smite, which does spirit damage. Our pikemen will make people weaker to spirit damage, and it will put them in defense mode, so if you're not using that cascading defense on that turn, Paladins still get to end their turn in defense mode with a short cooldown. The real thing we're here for, not the Vigils, is again the race transformation. Get spirit resistance. And more fun, once you drop low on health, you ignore your casualty penalties so your units still do full damage, and you get more defense and resistance. So the lower on health you are, the harder you are to kill, buying you more time to do that big burst heal with the added healing from Tome of Discipline. You're seeing how this is all starting to shape out. Then starting at tier 3, you can take these in either order you wish. Tier 2, I would say you definitely take Construct first. because when you do get paladins, you want them all the way buffed with link mines and everything. Tier 3 and Tier 5, or your Tier 3 tomes, you could take in either order. I prefer to take Sanctuary first because of Keeper's Mark, which is going to buff all your units and make them, one, it'll give them Faithful. We already got Faithful on all our supports, now all our other units get Faithful, so good unit upkeep, good for keeping lots of armies on the field. But this will also make it much harder for them to die, buying you time to get those big burst heals off so that you can keep your armies alive longer, get them to legend rank, not have to resupply armies with more units when you're trying to go and take city after city after city. And then Anointed People, a race transformation, more status resistance, so we're at +4 if you include Inner Mastery, and more spirit resistance, which I believe we're at +5 because of Virtuous Spirit. Tome of Subjugation, the main thing we are looking for here is Tyrant Knights and Intimidating Aura. Intimidating Aura is just kind of an added bonus. Routing things is always a good thing. Tyrant Knights, these are one of our Tier 4 unit options. Kind of the one I like to mix in. I like to keep 2 Guardians in every stack and then throw in a Tyrant Knight as well. My Dragon tends to take the role of the Tyrant Knight in the Ruler's army. On to Tier 4. Obviously, we take Tome of Supremacy, the one all about empires. We get Supreme Magic to buff all of our wonderful casters with Zeal. Anthem of Victory is an awesome spell. This is where that cheerful buff kind of comes in. Everyone gets a little bit more morale out of this. Tome of Prosperity. This fits the whole... This is just the Akatosh book, right? We get Staves of Grace, which is going to buff all of our supports with AoE cleansing abilities and grace stacks on themselves and their support abilities. Very, very nice for our architects. Blessed Armors for our guardians and our horsemen, giving them inner grace, which means they start the turn with grace. Because we're using a lot of infantry and a lot of supports, our whole armies should have inner grace by this point, meaning a little extra free healing, and that healing is buffed by Inner Mastery, and we get extra resistance on our support on all of our frontline units as well, which is nice. And then city structures and spells and all that, and God Emperor, I'm not even going to touch on it. It's honestly kind of a meh tome. It's just there for thematics. But that is the bulk of it. And there you have it. That is all I have for today on my Imperial build. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any other ideas. I have a lot planned for Thrones of Blood, which is coming in a couple weeks. I have a lot of builds pre-prepped. If you look at my custom tab, you can probably see a couple, but I'm not going to spoil anything. Werewolves. There might be one more build out before Thrones of Blood. It's kind of related to this one. Didn't mean to zoom in on you, Akatosh. Sorry. It's Mana Marco. It's Undead. Unfortunately, it's Undead and it's Summoners, and both of those things got nerfed a bit. Specifically, Summoners got nerfed. So I might test it on the beta patch if I have time before Thrones of Blood and get that video out. No promises. Otherwise, Mana Marco will be post-patch down the line. But that's a problem for later. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Until next time.